Good afternoon, and welcome to a conversation with Noraa James and Madeline Blankenship. I'm Mark Callahan, Artistic Director of Ideas for Creative Exploration, an interdisciplinary initiative for advanced research in the arts here at the University of Georgia. And this event is sponsored by the Willson Center for Humanities and Arts, and is part of the UGA Spotlight on the Arts Festival. And if you'd like to see the full schedule of all the arts events going on this month, please visit arts.uga.edu. Our conversation will begin with a short presentation by Noraa James, who recently completed a residency at Creature Comforts Brewing Co in downtown Athens through the support of their Get Artistic program. And Noraa James is an artist whose work explores the beauty and sublimity of Blackness in many forms, and whose residency focused on both the creation of new works and on facilitating a community conversation about opportunities for marginalized artists. And then we're going to learn more about the Get Artistic initiative from Madeline Blankenship, Creature Comforts Brewing Company community specialist and program lead of Get Artistic, an initiative to help creative communities thrive. And everyone is welcome to engage in the conversation today. You may use the Zoom Q&A feature to share a question or comment. And if you'd like to join in our conversation with your microphone, you can use the raise hand feature in our webinar. Well, thanks again for joining, and please welcome Noraa James and Madeline Blankenship.
Hey, happy to be here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for attending and showing up today. So I have a short presentation to share with y'all just to give a little bit of background about myself and also to kind of give some illustrative visual elements to my entire tenure as the artist in residence at Creature Comforts. So bear with me one second. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so as you all may or may not know, I was recently an artist in resident at Creature Comforts from August 20th to October 24th. That's where our capstone event happened. And in that tenure, it was incredibly amazing for me and such a learning experience and a buildup in confidence for me as an artist. But my journey started very long ago. And I feel like right now it's at a point that I'm evolving, and this has been a very big contributor to it. But let's start from the beginning. So my birth name is Aaron James Mosby, and I was born in Rapid City, South Dakota, in a military family. Moved to Virginia, where I basically spent most of my life from 5 to college, where my college was Old Dominion University, and I majored in drawing and design. So around that same time, I had a different name that I went by as a graphic designer and as what I was known as like more of a hobby artist in a way, and that was surreal. So upon going to Maryland after graduation, I decided to really just focus on my design more, and I kind of made art more of a hobby than it was before, where it's not something that I saw as, I guess, a future for myself until I came to Georgia with my now wife. And I started at UGA doing graphic design and photography. And yeah, I think I started to connect with the art community out here, and it really kind of reinvigorated a lot of my visions and goals and dreams as far as being an artist. So I started to pursue that more. And I really, I guess, fell into this community that really helped cultivate my inner visions, things like that, through a lot of initiatives that I teamed up with a few artist friends out here. You know, we started the studio that we held a lot of events out of, and we also just really continue to share different opportunities for each other as artists so that we can continue to like really push toward our visions and goals. So yeah, and in that same note, I decided to change my name, my artist pseudonym, to Noraa James. And the origin of that, as some of you may not have noticed by now, Noraa is Aaron backwards. and James is my middle name. So the purpose for this, for me, was to sort of, I guess, really celebrate and strive to embody the duality of masculinity and femininity, because I feel like that is what makes someone whole, not 100% one thing or the other. And I think that, incorporating that into my practice is something that really is needed for my art. These are a lot of my inspirations growing up. I was always into a lot of music, and that's really what drives a lot of my visions as far as my art right now. Movies have always been a big inspiration for me as well, and even more recently, nonfiction books. I was really into fiction books as well. But yeah, N.K. Jemisin, who did the Broken Earth trilogy, is probably one of my most inspiring people right now. So while in college, even going into college, my big focus as far as my art was to focus on photorealism. And that was always a big thing for me too, because being in such a homogenous field, as far as like what I've seen so far, I wanted to really show people that like I do have the skills and I do have the talent, and these are things that I worked hard for, and I do belong in this place, even though that, you might not have seen a lot of artists, that look like me. And, my ultimate goal at that time was to basically just be like, yeah, I'm better than all y'all. And it was very one-dimensional. And hold on, give me a second. It's loading up. Here we are. This is a picture of my sister, and it was a hair study that I was doing. That was one of my advanced drawing subjects, where I was just studying the different textures of Black people's hair and really doing my best to get the detail in there. And then going beyond drawing and things like that. Give it a second, still loading up. But the next slide is going to be about my photography, which took a big, here we are. Ultimately inspired by Caravaggio, which was a Baroque painter who really utilized this technique called chiaroscuro, which is like the dramatic transition from dark and light. And I really wanted to capture that in my photography to emphasize drama and I guess moodiness. And in some ways, I do try to incorporate it into my art as well. My values and ethos started to change from just trying my best to like really crap on my students to focusing on just celebrating Black people after the rise of Black Lives Matter. And at that time, just, being overwhelmed with all of these police shootings that were happening, and that kind of dominating our airwaves, which really affected, my self-esteem and a lot of my peers' self-esteem and things like that, in the sense that we didn't feel like we belonged here, and just us being and existing was a threat. So I really wanted to shift my focus to showing Blackness, not as a threat or anything that's, overtly like beastly or dangerous, and show the beauty, excellence, the divinity, and the vastness and beyondness of Black people, and how connected we are to everything else around us. We're all connected, and I wanted to show that we are very present in that. And then celebrating the Black skin, and really comparing it to a lot of the sublime elements that show up in nature, whether it be the vastness of space or the depth of the oceans, everything in between. And I wanted to emphasize that, in our Blackness, we are with that sublimity. And a few other elements was to basically challenge patriarchy. And in that, I like to show some elements of men, boys, things in between that, aren't afraid to show intimacy, to show expression and emotion and things like that. And even for women, I wanted to really show that, the strength of women, and also the unity that they have with each other as well. And then a lot of that, ultimately, like my art is sort of a love letter to Black people. And this is where my art started to shift. I was really big into graphic design at the time, and I loved photo manipulation. So like in the previous image where it shows a mother and child, kind of on a voyage to, who knows where. I wanted to also show um, like Black characteristics of extraterrestrial beings, just to really emphasize the idea that, even during the diaspora, we were brought here and oftentimes we feel alienated from the society that we were brought up in. And it's the only society we know, but we still don't feel like we really belong here sometimes. And I really wanted to show that, well, there's beauty in that as well. And coming to Athens, I really revisited a lot of this in a more evolved way after a year of despondency in between, because I just was going through a lot of mental health and just a lot of things as far as wondering if art was even a thing for me. And like I said before, Athens really sparked that for me. And a lot of things that I'm exploring now is, in my ancestry and how I can celebrate my ancestors for all of the things that they've been through, and how I wouldn't be here without them, and really just honoring them through a lot of my artistic elements, whether it be through masks, and these are representative of my lineage back to Africa, and that's not something I'm entirely connected to or even know much about, but this is through the lens of an African American who, growing up in America, my perception of, my indigenous roots are severed. But in a way, I'm hoping that through my art, I can reconnect with those and reconnect with the ancestors and show that I'm still here with you and you're still here with me. This is the beer can design that I worked on, during the beginning of my residency at Creature Comforts. And I really enjoyed this because this is a further idea that I continue to explore as far as, Black skin being connected to the sky, and then, Black hair, the textured hair and things like that, kind of being a continuation of, the universe. I actually have a video to show, the process of me creating this. So bear with me for a sec. This is a rare glimpse as well, because I don't really do this often, but. All right, there we go. Yeah, so there's a lot of back and forth that goes on with these images as far as, sorry, what worked, what doesn't work. And I think that's cool to even, capture that part of the process as well, because I don't always know what the end result is going to look like, but it's a journey for me. And I think that's an exciting way to be, in the sense of it keeps me in the present, which is where I believe that the love can express itself the most. Give me a sec. All right, and here's the other big can design that I did for Creature Comforts, and the topic for this one was celestial mind. So they really trusted me after seeing the first one, and in creating a design that with just the name celestial mind will be something that's cool. So I really wanted to express, both ends of the spectrum of, masculine and feminine, and how, both of those unified together kind of creates the possibilities for everything to be manifested. And that's me. Hey, y'all. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my creative process as far as the painting I worked on while a resident. So I found this big MDO piece of wood, and I sanded it and primed it. And I saw this as the perfect substrate for my piece of work that I kind of came up with, not necessarily on the fly, but I was really loose with what I was going to do. So, I played with my iPad and I sketched out a few things, and I really just went straight to the board, bare bones, and started drawing it out. And as you can see, this is the format of everything that I started. And I started throwing on colors as well, just playing with what works best. And ultimately, I came up with the idea that I just want to use all of my favorite colors to express some of my favorite things. So I started laying things down and layering up, and a process that I really use to sort of get the more three-dimensional look to a lot of my paintings is just breaking it down into a simple formula of darks, mids, and highlights, and getting those down into certain steps, and layering those on top of each other allows me to really emphasize certain elements looking closer and other elements looking further away. And I find that, having a more monochromatic approach to it, it makes it easier for me at first, and I can kind of like layer in other colors on top of that. But as you can see, this is ultimately like just different shades of blue and then some shades of purple, which I use for a lot of my Black figures because of, well, this origin is more so in the sense of like dealing with colorism, in that like oftentimes, especially during my childhood, people who were really dark skinned often got called derogatory things like blurple or blue black and things like that. And I wanted to like really show that I think that's something that's beautiful. And, darker you are does not necessarily mean the lesser you are. Along with working on this painting at Creature, I did have a little paint night, well, paint day thing, paint afternoon, I would say. And I kind of like explored this technique with other people in showing how to make clouds, which I started with darks, mids, and then highlights. And, there's a few students that I had, which did a great job along the way. It's loaded. Okay, so this is the painting piece right here that after I finished, I love this part. This is almost one of my favorite parts of the process, where I add a gloss varnish over it to kind of just seal it all in place. And this is almost the same, in the graphic design terms as, finishing up your design and hitting that export button. I'll mute that for now. But, yeah, it's just really cool how adding gloss varnish just amplifies color and adds a depth to everything that you paint. Yeah, super cool. I can do that all day. And this is what it looked like after. And the painting is officially complete. So I will be getting a better photo. But yeah, I'm really happy where it is. And this is actually my first like really like ambitious painting I've done in a few years, I think since college. So it was great to just be brought back into this space where I can like, get messy and play with paintbrushes. Along with, the painting opportunities, I had a great team of artists with me on a board and a lot of the operators at Creature Comforts to put together an event that focused on this problem that I kind of wanted to address and explore with other people. And it's, to create more equitable and open opportunities to develop meaningful relationships with local marginalized creatives. So in that way, we created an event called Painting Bridges, which allowed us to bring on a few marginalized creatives to essentially highlight them and celebrate them and allow them to create, in a space that people can see. And then also we had a panel discussion that explored a lot of these questions further and kind of just put this in a lot of the minds of the people who attended to, really see in different ways how we can all come together to address these opportunities. So it was really cool to just see how everyone, showed up in their most authentic self. And I'm really grateful for Creature Comforts to provide this platform for so many amazing creatives that I've known and met, and even some that I met for the first time. Here's a picture of the amazing panel discussion I've had with a few connectors around Athens. Yes, I believe there's a video for this that'll be coming out soon if you've missed it. So what's next for me? Starting November 28th, we will be flying, me and my wife will be flying to Merida, Mexico. And from there, I will be really focusing on the Creature sponsored online school that was provided through my residency. And with that, I will basically learn a lot of the skills that Madeline has learned in, becoming more than just an artist, but also someone who can create and connect opportunities and events and things like that. I'll be taking this online oil painting course, which, it's kind of a refresher course for me. And along with that, I will be learning animation, just diving more into my music production ambitions and learning NFTs and things like that. And ultimately, I want to be able to come back to Athens, periodically to stay connected to our community, but also, be a part of exhibitions and things like that, and really just kind of just pour more into my creative space. And a interesting goal also that I have that I want to make is a visual EP, which is sort of like merging a lot of the skills that I learned next year as far as animation and music production, and also collaborating with other musical artists to create some sort of album that has animation with original music as well. So that's what I have about me. Thank you all for listening, and let's move on. So I'll pass this on to Madeline to talk a little bit more about all the opportunities and things that have happened at Creature.
Sure, I'm always excited to hear what you're talking about next, because I'm just such a fan and of your work, and that painting just came out so beautiful, and it's still on view in our chap room right now. If anybody wants to go check that out, so that should be on view for, Nora, what do you think, another week or so? Pretty organic ending process here.
Yeah. I'll be gone next week, so it'll be there.
Okay, so come see it soon. But yeah, hey everyone, my name is Madeline. I've had a few different job titles here at Creature Comforts. Right now I think it's hospitality manager, but what I've done over mostly the last 4 years, but really over the last 7 years since Creature Comforts opened, I just happened to be on the opening taproom staff. I was an art history student at the Dodd at the time, and I just needed a part-time job, and I just so happened to be the only person on staff who was involved in art or in the art school. So what we call Get Artistic now, it really is an evolution of what we at Creature Comforts have done since day one, pretty much day one of us opening, through a lot of different activities, a lot of different things we've done. It's evolved a lot over the years, but we really since day one have been invested in supporting the creative community in the best way that we can. And so Get Artistic today, it's a year-round program, and it exists to strengthen Athens, Georgia's creative community by removing obstacles for artists. Something that has always been true, I think, about Creature Comforts is that we as a company, we want our community to be better because we're here, because we're there. We actually are, if anybody doesn't know, we are opening, it's very exciting, we're opening a new tap room in Los Angeles right now. It's all been in Athens so far, but no matter where we go, we want that to be true. And every community is really different, but the reason that we think, the reason that Get Artistic exists as a part of our community impact efforts, in that route to, we want to make the community better because we're here, is because we think that artists are change makers. We think that artists and investing in artists is one of the most important things you can do to build a community's capacity for creative problem solving. We think that artists are naturally positioned to help bring a community towards that sort of better vision of the future. And if a community doesn't have the infrastructure that artists need to be able to develop and thrive and build a life, then communities are just going to miss out on the value that these change makers bring to the table. So yeah, Get Artistic has changed a lot over the years, from when I was an art history student in my undergrad and working in the tap room. And it took the form at the time of just using the simplest thing that we had, which was our space, which was our tap room. So I started to learn how to put an art show together and to work with local artists, and realize, oh, there's more we can do to make this better, to get people to engage with it more. So we just started doing events. We started doing, just refining our processes. And so it grew to finally, I think it was in 2018, we finally launched Get Artistic as a formal year-round community impact program that included all the events and exhibitions, but also a grant program that we ran for a couple years. And so what we decided to do this year, kind of in light of COVID and just the new realities that we're in, of just realizing, okay, where, and just asking ourselves, what can we do to really support the community the best we can? What can we do that's different, that maybe someone else can't do, but we can? We're in a position that we can. So what we did this year, moving into 2021, we realized that the best thing we could do to maximize our contribution to the local creative community would be to focus on one artist at a time. So that is mostly happening now through our residency, which is why Noraa is here. And we wanted to create a residency that not only provides financial support through a stipend, it also provides time and space to develop creative work, to do, what artists' main job is doing, which is creating. And then the increased visibility that comes with that, of having, using our platform of our space, right, and our marketing channels and so on, just using all the resources we have to increase visibility for an artist. But we also really want to intentionally invest in artists' professional development. So this year it's shifted a little bit to grow this artist in residence program. But really what we're doing, we kind of bring it down to three simple things. We leverage the resources we have of our time by participating in various arts advocacy forums. I'm very involved in Create Athens, which is the work group, arts and culture work group out of Envision Athens, which is the group that is organizing groups sort of carrying out Athens' 20-year master plan. I'm now the vice chair for the Athens Cultural Affairs Commission, and I just do a lot of different things through in the community to just, as it relates to Creature, so that we can learn how we can, what the needs are and how we can best serve the community, right? Other resource we leverage is our time, our space, which is our tap room. So that involves the exhibitions and events we do. And then the last resource we say is our money. So that comes down to the funding of our artist residence program. And then the other main part we do now, rather than the grant cycle that we used to do, we do grant cycles not for nonprofits, which is what we used to do, but for just individual artists and arts collectives. So we do that through a program we call the DIY Fund. And so all of these things I'm talking about, there's really not a model for what we're doing. Which is why it's changed a lot, because we have been really intentional about doing research about, okay, what are other, corporations doing to support the arts? What are nonprofits doing to support the arts? What is what does it look like for the public support of the arts, like through the Athens Cultural Affairs Commission or other sort of public groups? And so what we do through the Artist in Residence program, the DIY Fund, is kind of a mix and mash, greatest hits, if you will, of what we've learned about what else is going on out there, and then what can we do that's different to fit the needs in our community. So so the two main programs now, we have the Artist in Residence program. We started that last year with Abigail West, who is a creative waste reuse specialist and another DOT alum. And COVID pretty significantly limited what we were able to execute as far as the public engagement side of her residency. Our tap room wasn't even open until after her time was done, but we still wanted to work with her, provide a space for her to create artwork using some hard to recycle materials from our brewing processes, actually. And so her engagement was more internal and with our staff versus, we wanted to kind of really focus on that this year with Noraa's residency. So we expanded the program this year to kind of be into two buckets. There's the hands-on experiential education for an artist, which comes in the form of giving time and space and resources for them to develop their artwork. So that was Noraa working on this painting in our tap room, building connections to the public and other local art professionals. So kind of just like keeping the dialogue going and building connections, which we did through his live art sessions. We had Noraa painting actually in the tap room, and it wasn't just about painting and creating the painting, but it was also, catching people as they're walking by, and maybe they don't know anything about art in Athens. And then that's an opportunity for this patron and Noraa to connect personally, but then also for them to get, hopefully more interested in what's going on in town. And then the last part of it is engaging with the community through a project developed by Noraa. So that's where Painting Bridges came to life. That was kind of the most open open part of the residency going in. We say, okay, we know what developing artwork is going to look like. We know what yada, yada, but this we say, okay, we want to do some sort of community engagement project. So we went from like, we could do anything to really thinking critically about, okay, well, what is the change that we want to see in our community, and have that kind of drive, that vision be what drove our action and the process of working with a small group of artist advisors and Creature Comfort stakeholders like Noraa talked about to develop what came to be Painting Bridges. So that's sort of the hands-on education side. The other thing that the residency provides is formal education. So Noraa mentioned when he's in Mexico, he's going to be doing an online school program that we have funded. So that program, it's actually something I went through myself. So Noraa referenced the like skills that I've learned through it. You know, I think that this program, which is called the Creative Catalyst Certificate Program, it is designed for artists, and it was truly life-changing. I'm a pretty self-taught, I mean, I have my art history degree, but when it comes to what I do now as an arts organizer, that just happens to work at a brewery, it's pretty self-taught. Like I said, I kind of have borrowed from corporate, from nonprofit, from public, just all this research and the connections I've made here in Athens, where people are so motivated and interested in creating our just a better environment for artists. So this program was the first time I'd ever gone through anything that was kind of putting what I do through a lens of almost like entrepreneurial and innovation skills for artists and for creatives. And I know it made a huge difference for me as someone who actually does have a few years experience, you know, 4+ years experience in doing this. So I'm so excited to get the opportunity to help pave the way for other artists who maybe haven't had the same opportunity and experimental space that I've had to develop, you know, events and exhibitions and learn what it can be like to work with a creative community. They're going to get to learn those things through this formal program. So I'm really excited for that to be a part of this. We'll fully fund the tuition for that, and hope to, even though Noraa won't be our resident at that time as he goes through that 6-month program starting in January, I'm really excited to just hear about what you're learning and just keep the dialogue going. And just before I move on, the DIY fund is the other big part of our funding now. So that is a kind of unique, fun little project we do. So that DIY fund, we say it exists to empower artists as leaders in our local arts community. Each DIY fund cycle provides one artist art collective in $2,000 in grant funding to support some sort of collaborative community-based project. So really just trying to centralized resources for these very much artist-led projects. And the way that we bring that to the public, we go through an open call, we select finalists, and then every one of the finalists gets a $250 stipend to participate in a really fun event we call the DIY Fair. So imagine kind of a science fair style event that takes place at our tap room, and it showcases these project boards that is essentially like a project pitch of what the artist or artist collective is wanting to work on in just this really fun visual way. So it builds in an audience for the artist to get to connect with the community. So even if they don't wind up, necessarily winning the $2,000 grant, we're still getting artists all together. They get to meet each other. They get to bring their project to the public. So it's really unique. There's nothing else like that here in Athens. And that's actually how we got to know Noraa James last year. He was one of our DIY Fund finalists in 2020. Yeah, so that's kind of Get Artistic in a nutshell. It's a lot of different activities, but it all comes down to time, space, money, and what we're trying to do is just help Athens to be a better place for artists to build a life and help make our community better.
Thanks, Madeline. It's great to hear about all these programs, and so exciting to reflect on the past few years and how much the program has grown and improved and really become catered to the needs of our community. Noraa James, what was it like painting in public?
That's a good question. Initially, I had a little bit of anxiety, because I didn't know what it would be like to, be surrounded by people and still be able to focus on what I'm doing. But it turned out to be one of the most exciting opportunities I've had, as of late. Just to see people coming up and be so interested in what I'm doing, and then also just like, pour in, praise and just, a lot of like encouragement for it. Really boosted me in so many ways. And I feel a lot more confident with my craft. I feel able to, really talk about what I do and how I do it and why I do it more better, because I've had this practice with different people that came up, throughout the time that I've been painting, in front of. So it's truly been an invigorating experience, and I almost wish it didn't end. I could paint there for free, if anything.
So I wanted to hear a little more about the Painting Bridges event. So this was a day where people could come and interact with artists who were showing their work and making work, and then had a panel session about opportunities for marginalized artists. And I know in that panel we talked about the roles of connectors and gatekeepers. And I'm wondering now, as you reflect on having coordinated that event and sort of gathered and shared so much knowledge about this issue, what are your feelings now about the real challenges and roadblocks and opportunities for marginalized artists?
I would say, to answer most of that, because I'm still like kind of reflecting on a lot of the events that happened that day, but just to see how much work is being done to, create these bridges already, that I wasn't aware of before. It's almost like there was a whole network that I was unaware of, and to become engaged with that is something that I feel has been important, not just for me, but also for me to like kind of share that network with other people. So now that I have a little bit more knowledge of, what there is out there for people to engage with, and, kind of look at art as something that could support them and really take them forward. I know that, now my role is sort of a connector as well. And I think I mentioned this before, that sometimes our roles are really malleable, and that sometimes we are the ones that get given the keys. Sometimes we're the ones that give the keys out. And I feel like after this event, I could be the one to, just kind of sort of give more keys out, and, kind of spread this opportunity and this wealth of wisdom that I've, gained through this.
Yeah, I think something we talked about, maybe on the panel and maybe just the rest of the day is kind of like, Noraa, what you're saying of like, oh, there's all this cool stuff that's already happening, but not everybody knows about it. So I think so much of this comes down to just talking to each other and showing up to talk to each other. And then we figure out, oh, hey, I'm hearing you need this, and here's what my friend over here, or my colleague over here is working on, and maybe you guys can talk. And I think a lot of that, it can happen so organically if we can just come to the same table, which has been really hard in the last year and a half when things have been, we're doing a virtual panel right now. A lot of things are virtual if they're happening at all. But I think that the time is right for us to like, pick up these conversations, I think everybody that I am working with in town is just like very actively like craving that connection with each other, and to get people involved again in our work, even better than we ever were in the before times. So I think, yeah, one of the biggest obstacles to getting, resources for anyone is like just knowing what's out there, what conversations are happening. So I think we just need to create more spaces where people can come together, kind of like the Create Athens conversations, those work group meetings. It's a space where anybody is welcome, any individual artist, you can be a business leader, you can be a government, anybody is welcome. We all come to the same table, virtual or in person, and talk about what's going on and what are the needs. So that is a great model, and I think there's ways we can continue to do more things like that here in Athens for us to just show up for each other and talk to each other.
Something that I really appreciate about that event and what Creature Comforts is doing, and is that arts fields are really struggling to break free of this scarcity mindset, this kind of desperation around fundraising for arts. And I feel like Creature is taking a stance of abundance mindset, that this town is so full of creativity and so full of people, and asking the question, well, how can we best support them? And if we really want to think more critically around breaking down that model of sort of gatekeepers withholding resources, we have to sort of shift to thinking about, the absolute abundance of creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been thinking a lot about this in the last year. Athens has this reputation of being this creative place. It's like, it's a music town, it's an arts town. But when you look at where the resources are, who gets paid after what show, there are just a lot of gaps in sort of what we would call like the infrastructure, right? So we want to kind of close that gap between, what sort of is right now of a lot of artists can't really make or build a life for themselves here. So they wind up maybe trying to make it here and then they have to move elsewhere. So we want to close the gap between kind of where we are now and really just making good on what our reputation is like there are so many artists here. This is a great place for music, etc. We want to be able to close the gap to help people to really be able to stay here. So and just to make the town better. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Noraa, I wonder, since you've had a really positive experience the past few months, what are your thoughts about, who feels welcome to participate in arts fields?
Who feels welcome is a part of the problem too, that we've been trying to explore, because it's almost like there's no signs of saying you're not welcome. But I think in a lot of these spaces, because they have been so like kind of homogenous and the operators of it, that it almost felt like, for me or even other people in the other communities that aren't necessarily in these spaces, like we don't belong there. And that really kind of like turned itself on its head for me, in the sense that like, this community wants to belong, but also these people want, to show that, they belong and we all belong together. And I think the communication is what's really the part that needs to be massaged to just show that we do all want to come together. And like the conversations we've had there, these conversations need to continue so that, we can kind of like blend these spaces more, because I think there's not enough blending that's happening in Athens, and that's why it seems so one-sided as it has been. And I know the pandemic didn't really do justice for me, because I came here right before it happened, so my exposure to Athens is very limited. But even in that sense, as things open back up, we can probably put that at the forefront of our thinking, to ensure that these spaces become more unified than they were before the pandemic.
So I want to open this up to further engagement from our audience today, and thank everyone for joining us. We'll have about maybe 10 more minutes together for questions. And I see a question here in our Q&A feature from Dominica. While you're in Mexico, is there anything you're looking forward to besides creating art?
So many things. This is something I wanted to do since I was a child. Like I wanted to travel and see the world, because my favorite channel was the Travel Channel, Discovery Channel, National Geographic, things like that. And I always had this idea, like, I wanted to experience the world beyond the TV. And to be able to do this now is such a blessing for me. I'm grateful to be able to go there, not just focus on my art, but also like really indulge in Yucateca food, and just build up my Spanish speaking skills, and also learn the culture, because I feel like the more exposure I have to these different spaces, the better it'll be able to, make me more well-rounded and shape me into better talking about, the narratives that I want to explore and things like that, and how they can really expand beyond just my experiences here, and I feel like a lot of the narratives that I talk about are things that are evident anywhere in the world. And I think, as far as my ultimate goal of unity, I want to be able to find unity wherever I go, and in spaces that I might not feel comfortable at first.
All right, I have to read this comment from Lizette, someone you might know. Proud of you, son. Keep on doing what you're doing. Mom.
Thanks, Mom.
I'm just gonna savor that energy of appreciation right now. That is
Yeah,
wonderful.
much appreciated.
And feel free to use that Q&A feature, or if you want to join in our conversation with your microphone, if you use the raise hand feature, we can turn on your mic today. And Madeline, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how we can support Get Artistic if we are just thirsty citizens wandering around Athens.
Yeah, for sure. So if you happen to find yourself wandering around Athens and thirsty, so part of the funding for this program comes from our core product, which is beer. So we have a Get Artistic beer that comes out every year, and it's always delicious. It might be a different recipe. And so what we did this year was have our artists in residence design a label for it, and it is very, very beautiful. It was the first image that Noraa showed, the video time lapse. So that's the label for it. You can see that artwork on t-shirts, which are actually available right now in our merch store. And then the beer has not come out yet. Hopefully, check back soon. If you follow us on Instagram, that's where you'll find out the week of when the beer is coming out. Beer is a kind of living thing, so the target dates are sometimes hard to nail down. So I can't exactly tell you when it'll come out, but the reason that we would like for you to buy the t-shirt or merch is because we have, plans to grow the program. We would love, this is very provisional, not a promise, but what we would love to do, hopefully all in 2022, is introduce a second cycle of our DIY fund. So we're hoping to do that in the spring and the fall, not just the fall, just to provide more consistent funding options. We're hoping to develop, and again, very provisional, but we're hoping to develop a second artist residency position that would actually be more for an emerging arts organizer. So someone kind of more like me who wants to curate event, learn about event design and management, engaging an audience through art, and just all of that side, because we really need more arts organizers in Athens. And you could be a visual artist, you could be a musician, you could be, you could be any kind of creative and fill that role. So working on that, that'll be really, that would be a huge step if we can introduce that. So yeah, if you buy the, purchase, support it with the purchase of beer merchandise, all of the funds for that will go back to the program and creating more opportunities for artists in the future.
Great, and I see we have a question from Jennifer. How do we follow your work, Aaron? And how can people go and buy your art?
Hi, Jennifer. So my work can be followed right now through my Instagram, Noraa.James, spelled Noraa.James. My website still being worked on right now. Will be a place that you can go to buy prints and original arts. That will also be connected through another place that I'm on an advisory board for, which is the Black Art House, which is a online space for a lot of Black artists to be able to sell art and things like that on. So those will be to be determined as far as that comes out. But if you stay tuned to my Instagram, I will be releasing all the updates on that when it does come live. And I'm hoping that, around my birthday time, December 3rd, those things will be in place so that you can kind of like get some really cool swag for your living spaces.
We have a question from Ashley. How did you find the artists for the outdoor conversation and festival, the Painting Bridges event?
Many of them were actually on the advisory board to help me put the event together. But a lot of these people also that were on the advisory board are people that I've connected to while I was in the studio space with other artists called Finley Light Factory. Some of those people that were on the board were artists that I worked alongside with, and we helped put events together, throughout, my tenure here that also kind of, in a way, had the same objective of providing spaces for marginalized artists and for just people to come and, celebrate unique art, see live shows and things like that, even through the pandemic, whenever we had the safe space to do so. So these are people that I've met that have helped me to become more connected with my art. This is the community aspect that really is important for a lot of artists because, a lot of us are very individual minded and it can be very limiting to our success. So it's been a very good art community that I was connected to that kind of allowed this to happen.
And I would say that for sure for the live artists, it was a lot of the folks from the arts advisor group. And the panel, Nora and I just kind of thought about, the topic, sort of just the conversation we wanted to have. And then we just put a wish list together, our dream list, and just, asked who was available. So it was some folks that I've worked with a little bit more. So it was maybe some folks that Nora's worked with a little bit more. And we just put out some different feelers. And we wanted to, thinking about the connector / gatekeeper side of things, we wanted to bring in voices from like different, just to bring in different perspectives. So we had a working artist, we had another working artist who's more involved in nonprofit work. We had the arts division administrator for our county. We had Mark here from UGA. We had Ron Carson from Highlight Magazine. And if I'm forgetting anyone, I apologize. But yes, we wanted to bring in a lot of different perspectives to just kind of talk hive mind this conversation.
We have a question here, and I think this is an opportunity to unpack a phrase we've been using, or a term we've been using, about when we say marginalized. Are we speaking about artists of color or a style of art?
That's a very good question. And when I say marginalized, I think of artists of color, I think of the LGBTQIA population, I think of women. Those are the primary people that we sort of, try to provide these opportunities for at first. And that doesn't mean they're exclusive to those people. Of course, I want unity to be something that involves everyone, but we have to catch these different communities up with us, and create that equity.
Yeah, I think I like the idea that it means a lot of different things. So yeah, you can unpack it in any context and, get specific, or, but I think it kind of comes down to looking at like, okay, who's at the table and who's not at the table, and then kind of figuring out like, okay, well, what are the patterns at who's not at the table? And then there you can kind of find like, okay, well, why are these people sort of on the margins? That's kind of what we were thinking through.
And let's have one more question today. This is from Anna. Where does public art come into play in the task of making Athens a more artistically welcoming city? And do you have any desire to contribute to public art in Athens or other cities?
Yeah, I love this question. I think about it a lot. Yeah, what role does public art have in making it a more artistically welcoming city? Yeah, I mean, so when I was a freshman actually here in UGA 10 years ago, the Athens Cultural Affairs Commission was just founded that year. And I can't recall the phase of it, but I think the Public Art Master Plan, which is like the master document with all the guidelines and here's how things should work, that was developed around that time too. And I remember going as a college freshman, I was just curious to go into these public information sessions about that being developed. And I just thought it was the most amazing thing, because to me, it's public art is just, it is how it's like being such a visual oriented person, how your town looks is kind of how I think it should feel, or how it should, that's how those should match up. And I think that's actually pretty close to word for word what's in our master plan of like, the goal is for our city to look like it feels, and it feels like an artistic town. So we need to show up and make it look like that. We need to show up and make these fair paying opportunities for artists to contribute to that, whether it's on a major scale, like with our huge SPLOST funded permanent art projects, or maybe it's more programming and it's more of a small community or nonprofit led art activity, or festival or something like that. So I think it's all about just helping your city. We can make it more inviting by helping it look and genuinely be a place that is a place where artists can be. We can see the product of what people care about. We can see the product of what a city kind of cares about being, where their money goes and the infrastructure kind of dollars go, which is how our public art gets funded here. So yeah, so I could go on about that, but I really want Aaron to answer the other half. Do you have any interest in contributing to public art in Athens or other cities, Nora?
Absolutely. And I mean, a lot of the things you said, Madeline, I echo, especially in coming here and not really knowing anything about Athens before, going around town and you know, I was like, there's not enough murals here, or there's not enough like actual like artistic sculptures and things like that. And also I was not aware of the music scene that was here. So just to see more of those and even be a part of those would be amazing. Like I would love to do a mural. That's actually my ultimate goal. And I a few weeks ago, I collaborated with Broderick Flanagan, who's another big local artist out here who has done mural projects, notably on the Hot Corner. He has a major thing there, but it was also the Stephen Museum of Art in Buckhead that he had another art installation piece, and he invited me to kind of show me a few techniques as far as mural painting, because that is something I want to do. And to be able to do that in Athens will be, you know, an absolute dream of mine, and then beyond too.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. Be sure to check out more Spotlight in the Arts events with the schedule at arts.uga.edu. And Madeline and Noraa James, I so appreciate you joining today and sharing your knowledge. And I hope that everyone will support more of these programs and definitely seek out more creature activities and art work by Noraa James online. Thanks and have a great day.